You know, usually when we talk about global mega events, whether it's like the Olympics or a massive international art fair, there's this underlying expectation of volume.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't just mean auditory volume, but visual and psychological volume too. It's kind of like a stadium rock concert. You expect blaring lights, massive crowds, just a spectacle explicitly designed to overwhelm your senses.
Right, until you just surrender to the sheer crushing scale of it all,
Right.
it basically becomes this arms race of attention.
Yeah.
Like, who can build the biggest installation? Who
Yeah.
can be the loudest, the brightest, the most immediately shocking to the system?
And honestly, it is exhausting. I mean, it really is. But
Yeah.
then you step off a boat into the Venetian lagoon in the spring of 2026, and suddenly that entire paradigm shifts.
It really does. It's a complete 180.
Yeah, because we're looking at a curatorial landscape that is deliberately, almost radically lowering the volume. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're acting as your essential visitor guide to the 61st International Art Exhibition of La Biennale di Venezia.
It is the absolute definition of tuning into a different, much more profound frequency.
Right, and to figure out exactly how this massive event operates, we are pulling from a really rich stack of sources today. We've got official curatorial press releases, detailed architectural blueprints of the exhibition spaces, and, insider logistical guides.
All the essential blueprints.
Exactly. Our mission is to map out the logistics, unpack the curatorial vision, and prepare you for what is truly a transformative cultural pilgrimage. So we are looking at an exhibition that runs from May 9th all the way to November 22nd, 2026.
And we should mention the title.
Yes, the title is In Minor Keys, curated by the visionary Koyo Kouoh.
And we really must start by establishing the profoundly poignant context of this specific biennale. Because Koyo Kouoh, who was appointed as the artistic director of the visual arts department, actually passed away prematurely in May 2025.
Which was just a massive, heartbreaking loss for the global art community.
Truly, it was devastating. But what makes this exhibition so incredibly unique is that, well, before her passing, she had already meticulously developed the entire curatorial project.
Wait, really? The entire thing?
Yes, she had defined the theoretical texts, selected all 111 participating artists, conceptualized the catalog, and even mapped out the spatial architecture.
Wow. That is an astonishing level of preparation.
It is. And with the full blessing and support of her family, La Biennale di Venezia made the unprecedented decision to realize the exhibition exactly according to her design.
That gives me chills, honestly.
Right. Her dedicated team, which includes advisors like Gabe Beckers-Feijoo, Marie-Helene Pereira, and Rasha Salti, they stepped in to execute her precise vision. It makes this entire event not just a showcase of contemporary art, but a living, breathing testament to her life's work.
Okay, let's unpack this. The title, In Minor Keys. When I hear that, my brain immediately goes to music. Right, because a minor key usually conveys something introspective, maybe a little melancholic, definitely intimate. So how does a musical concept translate into the mechanics of a massive visual art exhibition?
That's the big question.
Is it like stepping away from the blaring loudspeakers of the world's chaos, all the doom scrolling and the 24-hour news cycles, and instead choosing to sit and listen to an acoustic guitar in a quiet room?
I love that. That is a brilliant way to visualize it. What's fascinating here is that In Minor Keys operates as a radical refusal of what Kouoh called the spectacle of horror.
The spectacle of horror, that's a strong phrase.
Very strong. Because in a world defined by compounding crises, conflict, and just this frantic drive for continuous productivity, the knee-jerk reaction for contemporary art is often to mirror that chaos right back at us.
Right, to shock us awake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this exhibition doesn't seek to add to the noise. It doesn't want to be just another litany of commentary on global trauma. Instead, it's about tuning into lower frequencies.
Whispers.
Yes, the whispers, the hums, the quiet spaces where actual human connection happens.
So it's about actively changing the physical and emotional state of the visitor, like physically calming them down.
Exactly. It's about finding beauty and resilience, despite tragedy. Kouoh deeply believed that poetry liberates and that people make beauty together.
That's a really beautiful sentiment.
It is. So the exhibition is designed mechanically to be sensory and regenerating. Instead of leaving you feeling totally depleted and overwhelmed by the weight of the world, it is actually structured to fortify you.
But getting that fortification requires knowing how to navigate the space, because that idea of quiet introspection comes face to face with the reality of
Oh,
Venice.
absolutely.
I mean, the city itself is an ancient floating labyrinth even before you drop the world's largest art exhibition into it.
And this is exactly where understanding the underlying architecture of the Biennale becomes essential. It is an environment that demands your active participation.
You can't just be a passive observer.
No, you can't just passively consume it like a movie. You have to work with it.
So let's lay out the map for you. The Biennale basically operates around two main epicenters. First, we have the Giardini della Biennale,
Right, the Giardini. It's this historic park on the eastern edge of Venice. It houses the permanent national pavilions alongside the central pavilion.
which is the classic image people have.
Exactly. When we talk about the nation-state model of the Biennale, this is what we mean. You have these permanent, distinct buildings, each owned by a different country, built in their own architectural styles.
Right.
It is quite literally a physical manifestation of 20th century geopolitical history.
So the Giardini is almost like a world's fair. You know, distinct pavilions waving their national flags, separated by very clear boundaries. But then, just a short walk away, you have the Arsenale, which operates completely differently.
Oh, the Arsenal is breathtaking. These are the vast, cavernous, former shipyards of the Venetian Republic.
Where they literally built their empire.
Historically, yes, this is where Venice built its maritime power. And today, those massive, continuous industrial spaces host the large-scale, curated international exhibition.
So if the Giardini is a world's fair, the Arsenale is like a massive open-concept kitchen where all the ingredients and artists just kind of bleed into one another's spaces.
That's a great analogy.
But the map doesn't stop at those two hubs, right?
Yeah.
The Biennale bleeds out into the water and the stone of the city itself. You have Forte Marghera over on the mainland in Mestre.
Yes.
And then you have 31 collateral events scattered across key Venetian districts. You'll find them tucked away in these hidden palazzos in Castello, Dorsoduro, Cannaregio, and San Marco.
Which basically turns the entire city into a living cultural ecosystem. And, my advice to anyone going is to treat the city's labyrinthine geography not as an obstacle to overcome, but as a vital part of the discovery process.
Okay.
Getting a little lost in Cannaregio on your way to a collateral event, finding yourself in a quiet, dead-end alley, that is part of the intended psychological experience.
Okay, wait, pause, pushback time.
So,
Getting lost. You say that like it's a romantic, charming feature of the trip. I mean, I have 3 days to see 111 artists, massive national pavilions, and dozens of collateral events.
true.
Getting lost in Cannaregio while my phone battery dies sounds like a fast track to a panic attack, not a curatorial strategy. Like, how do I balance this romantic wandering with actually seeing the art I came to see?
That is a very fair point. Very practical. But look at it this way. If you approach Venice with a strict minute-by-minute checklist, the city will absolutely defeat you.
It will definitely try.
It's designed to confuse you. But that friction is the point. When you are slightly lost, your senses are heightened. You are looking at the architecture, noticing the water levels, paying attention to the texture of the stone.
So you're saying it wakes you up.
Exactly.
Right.
By the time you finally cross the threshold into a tucked-away palazzo to see a collateral event, you are cognitively primed. You aren't just numbly walking from white room to white room. Your brain is actively engaged with the environment.
Okay, I see. You have to surrender a little bit of control to the city. That actually makes a lot of sense, especially when we look at how Koyo Kouoh designed the flow of the art itself once you're actually inside these spaces.
Precisely. She deliberately abandoned traditional rigid sections in her curation. You won't find a room labeled video art and another labeled sculpture.
Thank goodness.
Right. Instead, the exhibition flows through underlying motifs. And these motifs were heavily inspired by literary giants, specifically Toni Morrison's Beloved and Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude.
Oh, wow. Two absolute masters of magic realism and like the crossing of temporal thresholds. But how do you take a literary concept from a book and physically build it into a room?
Well, you do it through architecture and sensory manipulation. For instance, the exhibition design, which was executed by Wolf Architects out of Cape Town, uses these massive, large, indigo-colored banners suspended from the ceilings.
Where are these located?
They're in the central pavilion and the arsenal. And they sweep all the way down to graze the floor.
So they act as physical thresholds.
Exactly. When you physically have to push through heavy, sweeping fabric to enter a new space, it forces a tactile reset.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You literally leave the previous environment behind, much like the characters in Morrison's work, crossing between the living world and the spiritual realm.
It demands that you physically interact with the space before you even look at a painting. That's so cool. And speaking of what we're looking at, there are a few key motifs woven throughout these spaces. First, there's R, which translates to shrines.
Yes, you'll find the R motif introduced right in the Solicini of the Central Pavilion.
Yeah.
It's a tribute to the generative, rule-breaking practices of two late artists, Issa Sam from Senegal and Beverly Buchanan from the U.S.
Okay.
But, this isn't a static, dusty retrospective. The focus is on the generative force of their methods. It's about how art acts as a living shrine, a site of activation, not just the preservation of a dead object under glass.
I love that. And then you have the motif of processions. This is where that Afro-Atlantic magic realism really feels tangible.
Oh, definitely.
The spatial design here completely subverts the traditional gallery setup because the art isn't just hanging statically on a wall while you stand quietly with your hands behind your back. It actually invites you to join a movement inspired by carnival choreographies.
Right, because in a procession or a carnival, the normal rules of hierarchy and power are entirely suspended.
The street belongs to the people.
Exactly. Artists in this motif are playing with archives and demystifying dominant narratives by making the viewer physically move through this space in rhythm with the installations.
Which brings us to the motif of schools.
This was incredibly important to Koyo Kouoh. Schools highlights grassroots, artist-led institutions that operate completely outside the commercial art market.
Okay, like what kind of places?
We're talking about places like Raw Material Company in Dakar, which Kouoh herself actually founded, or Luigi Reduces in Colombia, or the Nairobi Contemporary Art Institute.
But wait, why dedicate space to institutions rather than individual painters or sculptors?
Because these are ecosystems of learning and sharing that prioritize social responsibility over profit. By elevating these grassroots spaces inside the prestigious Venice Biennale, Kouoh's making a powerful, mechanistic statement.
Right.
She is showing the world that the true generative energy of the art world doesn't always come from massive commercial galleries. It comes from these local collaborative hubs of education.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because applying these big ideas to the actual artists is wild. There are 111 participating artists, so we obviously can't name them all. But let's look at how these theories work in practice.
We definitely should.
For example, keep an eye out for Galaporis Kim at the Applied Arts Pavilion in the Arsenale.
Oh, her work perfectly captures this oblique look at history.
Mhm.
She closely examines the complex relationship between cultural artifacts and museum conventions.
Sort of interrogating the archive itself.
Exactly. She questions the very mechanisms of how conservators classify history. By highlighting the systems of preservation, she forces the viewer to ask, who gets to decide what an ancient object means today? Who actually controls the narrative of the archives?
It's peeling back the curtain on the museum itself.
Okay.
And then you have Uriel Orlo. He creates botanical maps.
Which are fascinating.
Yeah, but he doesn't just hang up a vintage drawing of a plant. He tracks the migration of plants across continents, showing how flora moved alongside human colonization and trade routes.
He uses the prism of nature to map human history. Stunning. And then, if you head over to Forte Marghera on the mainland, you'll find Fabrice Aragno presenting a radical 3D reinterpretation of a Jean-Luc Godard film, The Image Book.
Which completely changes the mechanism of watching a film, because instead of staring at a flat, two-dimensional screen, the 3D element turns the cinematic image into a sculptural experience.
Right, you're navigating the space of the film itself.
But Forte Marghera is crucial for another very physical reason, right?
Yes. It embodies perhaps the most vital motif of the entire exhibition, which is the element of rest. In minor keys, actively builds in oases and Creole gardens.
Let's define that, because when I hear Creole gardens, I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking for in an art context.
Fair point. Historically, Creole gardens are specific, layered planting methods born from necessity, survival, and resistance in the Caribbean and the Americas.
Okay.
They mix medicinal, edible, and spiritual plants in one dense, vital plot. Translating that concept into a physical space of rest here in Venice means creating an environment where the architecture isn't just about viewing, it's about healing.
Which we see literally manifested by the artist Timoteo Ogunbi at Forte Marghera.
Yes, her work is incredible.
She has created this undulating, sprawling sculpture right on the lawn, but you don't just look at it. It is specifically designed for visitors to physically lay down on, to stretch out, and to reflect.
It is the ultimate expression of the minor keys concept. stopping the endless march, tuning in by literally laying down.
And that idea of an oasis is beautiful, but let's be real, it's absolutely necessary because Venice will physically break you if you approach it like a normal museum.
It will destroy your feet.
The geography demands a specific strategy. So let's pivot from the theoretical to the intensely practical. How do we survive this?
Time management and pacing are your best friends here. You have to treat the clock differently.
Let's run the data. Summer hours run from 11:00 a.m. to 7:00 p.m. But, and this is a massive tip, the Arsenal stays open until 8:00 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays until late September.
Oh, that 8:00 p.m. close at the Arsenal in the summer is your golden window.
Right. Autumn hours, starting late September, shift to 10:00 a.m. to 6:00 p.m. And remember, both venues are closed on Mondays with a few specific holiday exceptions.
But back to that golden window. While everyone else is leaving to fight for a dinner reservation, you are experiencing world-class art as the intense heat breaks and the sun sets over the water. It changes the lighting inside the cavernous shipyards completely.
And getting between these spaces requires understanding the water. You're navigating canals, not roads. To reach the Giardini, you'll want to take Vaporetto lines 1, 4.1, or 5.1.
Got it.
And then to reach the Arsenal, take lines 1 or 4.1.
And, taking a Vaporetto isn't like catching a subway. The physical act of moving over water, the slower dictated pace, the sway of the boat, it forces a psychological downshift before you even reach the ticket gate.
For sure.
Though we highly recommend the scenic walking route between the Giardini and the Arsenal along the Riva degli Schiavoni. It's relatively short and acts as a brilliant palate cleanser between the two dense hubs.
Tackling the Biennale is a lot like sitting down for a multi-course tasting menu at a Michelin-starred restaurant.
Oh, I like that comparison.
If you try to aggressively consume all 12 complex courses in 20 minutes, you are going to get severe cultural indigestion. You won't taste a thing, and you'll leave feeling sick.
The one-day sprint is strongly discouraged. You will only skim the surface and exhaust yourself physically.
Right. So what's the better approach?
A 2-day, or ideally a 3-day approach, is the strategy. Dedicate one full day to the intense geopolitical history of the Giardini, and another full day to the fluid, massive scale of the Arsenal. Then, use a third day to explore the collateral events scattered throughout the city's districts.
And pre-purchase your tickets online to skip the physical cues. That saves you precious energy.
Absolutely.
And engage with the Ask Me stuff on the ground. Also, definitely pick up the In Minor Keys short guide. It's not just a map. It's designed as a tangible tool to help decode the curatorial process as you walk.
These logistical strategies aren't just about avoiding sore feet, though. They are about freeing up your cognitive load. Because when you aren't stressed about catching a Vaporetto or finding a bathroom, your mind is free to process how this hyper-contemporary art is interacting with the centuries of Venetian history all around you.
Which pulls us right into the cultural layer of this event, because the scale of the global dialogue happening here is just staggering. There are 99 national participations, and incredibly, 7 countries are participating for the very first time in 2026.
That's a huge deal.
It is. We're talking about the Republic of Guinea, Nauru, Qatar, Sierra Leone, Somalia, and Vietnam, plus El Salvador participating with its own pavilion for the first time.
The inclusion of these nations is vital. It fundamentally shifts the center of gravity of the global art conversation away from traditional Western hubs.
Right.
It introduces entirely new historical perspectives and aesthetic vocabularies to Venice, proving that the Biennale is a living entity that is constantly expanding its reach.
And the Biennale actively engages with the deep, ancient heritage of Venice itself. Take the Holy See Pavilion, the Vatican's contribution. Their theme this year is "The ear is the eye of the soul," exploring the profound concept of silence.
Which perfectly parallels Kouoh's focus on deep listening and minor keys.
It really does.
And look at how they're doing it. They situated the pavilion across 2 stunning historical locations, the Giardino Mistico dei Carmelitani Scalzi and the complex of San Maria Ausiliatris. It creates a direct physical dialogue between contemporary artistic expression and ancient spiritual spaces.
We're also seeing the Historical Archive of Contemporary Arts, or ASAC, transitioning to a massive new home in the Arsenal. They are turning over 8,000 square meters of former ironworks into an international research center, taking documents from as far back as 1895 and turning them into living research material.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this raises an essential point about the nature of the Biennale itself. It isn't just a massive trade show or a temporary gallery. It is a cultural pilgrimage.
Yeah, a pilgrimage is the right word.
La Biennale di Venezia acts as a vital platform for open dialogue. In a deeply fractured world, it intentionally resists censorship and actively forces proximity among incredibly diverse cultures.
So what does this all mean for you, the visitor? You are walking over a centuries-old sinking stone bridge to look at a 21st century digital installation about the migration of plants.
That contrast.
Right. That intense friction between the ancient and the hypermodern is exactly what makes Venice so potent. It is the perfect fragile backdrop for In Minor Keys. You have a city holding onto its majestic history, acting as the stage for art that asks us to listen to the quiet, resilient frequencies of humanity.
Exactly. Navigating the Biennale Arte 2026 is, above all, an invitation. An invitation to step off the treadmill, to slow your pace, to listen deeply, and to connect with a collective score composed by artists from every corner of the globe.
It's about walking away from the blaring loudspeakers of our daily lives.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to carry with you long after you've left the Venetian lagoon. If minor keys are about finding beauty, resilience, and quiet truth in the margins, in the places and people we usually overlook, how might you apply this curatorial lens to your own daily life?
Oh, that's a great question.
Does true observation, true understanding require us to purposefully step away from the center stage of our own chaotic routines?
A profound question to ponder as you watch the water churn from the back of your Vaporetto ride home. Before we close, we want to acknowledge the work that made this deep dive possible. This review has been researched, analyzed, and produced by Simona Cochi, digital journalist and producer from The Italian Way, an expert in the field of digital valorization of arts, design, and fashion events and collections, who curated and authored the contents of this review. The journalistic platform Simona Cochi, The Italian Way, has been recognized as an authoritative instrument for digital cultural heritage, achieving a market valuation that reflects its high institutional standing. This milestone consolidates its role as both a journalistic and strategic asset, contributing to the enhancement of national heritage and aligning with international digitalization frameworks, including innovation-driven cultural policies.